everybody. I'm Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. The aim of this podcast is to raise awareness about blindness, visual impairment, and disability in general, in a happy and light-hearted way. For those of you that don't know, I am blind. I was born with a condition called bilateral anophthalmia. Try spelling that one. It basically means that when I was born, my eyes didn't develop properly, so I wear prosthetics instead. The goal of this podcast is to remove some of the stigma and stereotypes around disabilities, whilst also having fun at the same time. Each week, I will be interviewing people from all walks of life, including some with hidden or physical disabilities like mine, and getting to know a little bit more about them and the lives they lead. This week, I am very excited to tell you that I will be talking to fire performer, martial artist, stunt performer, and accessibility innovator, Nathan Geering. My name is Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. Hey Nathan, how are you?
I'm all good, thanks, Evie. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Really happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, I've been literally so excited about doing this all day, so thank you. How's your day going so far?
Yeah, it's going really, really well, actually. Just had kind of like a nice relaxing morning. Was speaking to one of my script writers about kind of like planning out the next few films that we're going to be developing and creating and stuff. And then just did some charity administration things as well. So it's been a steady morning and day. How about yourself?
It's been all right. I've had school all day, so trying to think. I got a couple of like test results back. I've had loads of exams over the past couple of weeks, so got some test results back. And yeah, in terms of school, it's actually been quite chill.
Oh, nice one. That's all good.
Yeah, but yeah, I think chill days or slightly more chill days are always really good. But you mentioned about talking to your script writers about sort of future films. Where does the inspiration for your films sort of like come from?
So I think it can come from anywhere with a lot of our films that we're making at the moment. I think it's just about kind of like just taking in our surroundings or certain things that we're like experiencing at the time and things, and then just thinking about if there's certain messages that we want to get out to the audience, and then yeah, just taking it from there really. For example, one of the inspirations came from actually watching a Jet Li. He's a martial artist, so watching a Jet Li interview with a Buddhist monk, and basically just something that he said in that interview kind of like really chimed with me. So I was like, oh, that might be good to put into a film, and that was basically he was talking about martial arts and about with martial arts, when you combine martial arts with a weapon, the weapon becomes a part of your body. And most people consider that as like a high level, but he was like, that's only the first level. So the first level is like the mastery of your body. And then the second level is to actually be able to disarm somebody with just your words. So without actually having to use any physical violence or any physical force. And then the highest level is to be able to disarm somebody with just a simple smile. And I thought that could be really great to put into a film like that kind of a philosophy, because normally with a lot of action films, it's just all about, who's the best fighter and things, but this can, potentially have a nice kind of like a twist on things.
Oh my God, yeah, I mean, that is so cool and that sounds amazing. Now, among many other things, you are a fight choreographer, fire performer, and break dancer. And I was wondering, how did that sort of journey into those areas begin for you?
Oh wow! So they came at various points in my life really. So I started off with my life actually as a young child, and I used to watch a lot of old school kung fu movies. So I was always into martial arts from a very kind of like early age. And then studying different styles of martial arts, but I kind of like stuck on Wing Chun Kung Fu, and I did that for quite some time. And then when I went to university, I actually went and did a degree in psychology, but they had a breakdance society at the university, so I joined that when I was about 20 years old. And I started just doing some breaking with the society, but they only knew like basic moves. And I picked up moves quite quickly because of my approach from Kung Fu that my Kung Fu teacher had taught me. He taught me kind of like in terms of how to figure things out. Like he would never give me the full answer for anything. He'd always say, "Okay, you know, extend your fist forwards. This is a straight punch," and then I'd do what I would feel is a straight punch, and he'd be like, "That's not a straight punch." And I'd be like, "It's exactly the same as what you did," and then so he would say, "Well." Try and go through a process of elimination. So see what happens if you put your hip into the movement a bit more, see what happens if you put your shoulder into it a bit more, see what happens if you put your emotional intention into things a bit more. And so because it's such a broad like journey in terms of it could be any one of those things that can make it a proper straight punch and things. I was like, that's going to take me forever. And he was like, well, welcome to the world of self-discovery. So, but I'm forever thankful to him because what he did was he actually gave me, instead of giving me the answers to stuff, he gave me the tools to seek out the answers for things and to really go on a journey of self-discovery. And within doing that, I got to know myself better, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and got to know other people better as well. And then so when it came to doing the breakdancing, I applied those same principles of movement that I learned in Kung Fu to breaking, and they transferred really well. So I picked up moves really quick in terms of breakdancing, and within a month I was teaching the class. And then from there I finished my degree, and then I said to myself, right, I'm gonna do what I love. So that was kind of like my journey into breakdancing, and then fire that came when my when I first met my partner, my girlfriend, actually, she basically said to me, "Oh, I eat fire." She does aerial hooping and things as well, so she's a bit of a circus performer. But she says to me, "Oh, I eat fire." I was like, "Oh, that's well cool." And she's like, "Do you want to learn?" And I was like, "What? I can learn that?" So yeah, yeah, I'll teach her. So I always thought it's kind of like one of those closed door things where you have to be part of like a secret society to learn fire eating and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, she taught me like the basics of fire eating. And she always says, "Oh, you're a real maverick, you," because obviously with all the breakdancing I do, I always go upside down. So as soon as I could, I really tried to figure out how to go upside down with like fire spinning and fire eating and everything. And then so I got loads of other fire props and like from fire swords to fire staffs to rope darts to fire nunchucks, everything. And I just really played around with those elements, and I just feel at home with fire really. And then so within that kind of context, I then got some extra tuition for fire eating. Uh, because if I wanted to go upside down and spin on my head whilst eating fire, I had to really make sure I had my technique to the top standard. So did that, and then yeah, so I've only been fire eating for almost 5 years now. And during that time, again, I applied my kung fu approach, and that was great. And apparently, I'm regarded as one of the top fire eaters in the world because I'm one of the only people to spin on my head and eat fire because everybody else is scared to do it because they're not sure of the technique. So that was quite nice. And then in terms of fight choreography, that only came about like last year actually. So I'd done filmmaking back in 2020 is when I started my filmmaking journey. But with fight choreography specifically, I just I just got to a point in my life where I was just like, okay, I need to ask my inner 8-year-old child, what do you want to do? And my inner 8-year-old child said to me he wanted to be Jackie Chan. So hence why I spoke about all the kung fu films growing up as a kid that I used to watch. So I used to watch a lot of Jackie Chan movies. So I was like, okay, well, I seem to have a bit of talent when it comes to filmmaking. The first film I made, like, won quite a few awards and things. So I was like, okay, let me really lean into filmmaking, but lean into fight choreography in particular. And yeah, I did that and haven't looked back ever since. And I've had quite a whirlwind journey so far. But yeah, it's been great. So that's kind of like how I got into those kind of like different elements.
Wow, I mean, that all sounds absolutely incredible. Now, on top of all of that, you are also an accessibility innovator for visually impaired people. So, how did that come about?
Oh, okay, right. So, in terms of accessibility innovation, so I used to run a theatre company called Rationale. The company still exists, but it kind of like does very different things to what it used to do back in the day. So basically, we were doing this kind of like they're called scratch performances, where when you have works in progress, you show the audience the work in progress, and then they give you feedback. And then this one time, we just didn't have like kind of like enough material to show them, so we kind of like borrowed a concept from another theatre show where the audience would be looking at us and we'd be in a still position, and then when they close their eyes and open their eyes again, we'd change positions, and then we just kept repeating that. So it's a bit like stop start animation. And um, we decided to do a hip hop version. So whenever they close their eyes and open their eyes, we'd be upside down, spinning on our heads, or bouncing upside down on one hand, or just be stood in a funny position. And they kind of like they really took to that kind of I guess dynamic, that visual dynamic, and they really kind of like loved it. So we were like, okay, so we got that response simply by just taking the audience's site and bringing it back. So I was like, okay, so let's make our next production kind of like surrounding visual impairment. So really superficially, we're dancing around with our eyes closed, not having a clue what it is that we're doing. And then my company member said to me, "You do realize we can all become visually impaired at any point in our lives." And then it was at that point I stopped and I thought, well, what if I was to wake up? And my daughter at the time, she was about 2 years old. I thought, what if I couldn't see my daughter again? And it kind of like it really kind of like emotionally like hit me on a deep level. And I was, if I'm being honest, I was really afraid. And so I'm the type of person, if I'm afraid of something, I develop a curiosity about it. And so I was like, okay, I need to find out as much about this as I possibly could. So going from somebody who was very superficially dancing around with just their eyes closed, I was like, no, I need to take a full on, proper, genuine interest. And so I started to work with a lot of visually impaired organisations like the Partially Sighted Society of Doncaster, Sheffield Royal Society for the Blind, and the RNIB. And as I did that, I found like lots of unlikely links between hip hop and accessibility, especially with visually impaired community. And so, yeah, the more I lent into that, the more I just found all these unlikely links, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my calling in life, really. So it all came out of fear, I guess, and developing a curiosity about something that I was initially afraid of, and then the more I looked into it, the more it just became a part of me. And this is now what I do.
Right, okay. But yeah, you definitely, I guess, kind of used fear as your motivator, didn't you? Would you say that was a good motivator?
Yeah, most definitely. I think a lot of times when we're afraid of things, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to learn about ourselves, or to learn about the thing that we're afraid of. And normally, if people are afraid of something, it's kind of like they try and run away from it. So it's almost like they reach their limit. But if you kind of like develop a curiosity about that fear, you can then go beyond your limits. And because a lot of the times it's actually the fear of the unknown, because you don't know what can happen. So you're afraid you become afraid. Obviously, at the time, I didn't know anything about visual impairment. But as time's gone on, I've learned so much about it, and like I say, it's a part of me now. So yeah, I'd recommend to anybody, if there's something that scares them, and it's not like life threatening, like
Yeah.
a lion running towards them or something that wants to eat them. I would definitely say develop a curiosity about it, because it may be a great opportunity for you to not only learn something about yourself, but also it could enhance your life in so many different ways. I know it has enhanced my life for sure.
Yeah, totally. But I do agree with you that a lot of the time it's fear of the unknown. Because I've always found that if people are afraid of the dark, I always think it's not the dark itself, it's kind of what's in it. And that fear of not knowing when the lights are turned out, not knowing what's there. I've found that for sighted people, that's probably why they're scared of it. Obviously, I'm fine with it, but for sighted people, that's probably why. But you also said you kind of found some unlikely links between hip hop and accessibility. So what was some of the links that you found?
Okay, so the I guess the first unlikely link we found was that um a lot of people with visual impairment, obviously it depends on the condition, but a lot of people with visual impairment, for example, they didn't enjoy going to the theatre at the time, and that was because they couldn't see the action too well. And I said, okay, so what do you need in order to see the action better? And they said, well, normally we need movements to change quite abruptly in dynamics from wide to narrow or high to low and things like that. And also a lot of, again, it depends on the condition, but a lot of people with visual impairment see better when they look down towards the floor because it has kind of like a big uh, plane surface for contrast, basically. And so I was just like, oh, well, breakdancing is a really dynamic art form. And where does most breakdancing happen? On the floor. So that was the first unlikely link, and then the next one was we were working with a visually impaired playwright called Kate O'Reilly, and Kate she sees the world in 2D, so it's like a flat picture to her. But when she watched our company Breakdance Live, she got an experience of what it's like to see in 3D, and she'd never had that with any other dance form before. So she was saying that she thinks it's something about the non-typical positions we put our bodies in when we're doing our breakdance freezes, or the kind of like the axis of what we spin around when we do our pound moves. That's doing something to her brain that kind of like gives her a sense of depth and perception. So I was just like, wow, okay. And she said she never had that experience with any other dance form. It was only with watching us do breakdances. She never had that with ballet or contemporary or any other kind of dance form before. So again, that was kind of like really profound. And then like we I carried on speaking to Kate a bit more so and other people, and I was like, do you know any visually impaired like breakdancers? And like there was obviously so many of them were kind of like part of disability organizations, but they couldn't find a single one. And I myself, I'd only ever come across like two in my lifetime. Um, and so I was just like, right, okay, well, I need to address that then because breakdance is incredible. So, I want to share this art form with, with other people that obviously haven't experienced it before. But I couldn't. The reason for me to do it could not just be because I wanted people just to dance in the show. I couldn't. One thing about me is I don't like doing things on a superficial level. I really like to find a deeper purpose and a deeper meaning as to why I do things. And so I thought about, okay, well, what's breakdancing done for me? And I was like, well, it's improved my spatial awareness, and also um, within breaking, you have certain skills called go downs, which help you go from standing to the floor in very safe ways and very cool ways. And so basically, I was like, okay, so when we learn how to go from standing to the floor, it means that we can do that and not get injured. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to teach breakdance as a means of injury prevention and to improve spatial awareness. So it becomes like a life skill to those that do it. And what's been great is it's like we've taught it all over, and we've had we've even had people like, for example, in on the London subway, and they said they trip over and then they just automatically roll into like a breakdance move and like not get hurt and things. So that was like music to my ears when I heard that. So yeah, so we had those unlikely links, and then the other one was around audio description. Um, you know, there was a lot of people with visual impairment that at the time, and I say this was going back like about 10 years ago now, probably a bit longer actually, but they were saying that they found the current provision for audio description just quite boring and unimaginative. It was very much, dancer turns her head to the left. And they wanted they felt audio description should be objective. So it should be obviously left up to the listener to decide what was happening without any kind of like emotional or subjective intervention. But the problem with how it was being delivered was I felt personally that art is supposed to be subjective, and art at the end of the day is supposed to make you feel something, right? And so if you have like a highly emotional for example scene happening, like somebody's crying and they crumple to the floor on their knees, and if you have that happening and real emotive music happening, and then somebody is just audio surrounding and go, she puts her hands to her eyes, she's crying, she falls to her knees. It kind of like takes you out of that emotional experience, and it can be a bit jarring. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can address that. And also, because obviously my background was hip hop culture, I was like, okay, what are the most vocal forms of hip hop culture? And I was like, okay, we have MCing, so rapping, but we also have beatboxing. And so that was it. I kind of like utilized the sound effects of beatboxes, but also combined them with like either MCs or poets to give a richer soundscape. But also we use heightened sound effects. So if there's certain naturalistic sound effects, we like amplify them or enhance them even more so if we feel it helps with kind of like telling the story or enhancing an emotional experience. But each production we do that with is kind of like on a case by case situation where we'll kind of like talk with the director and we'll figure out kind of like what is the best what is the best fit for their production. But yeah, so we reinvented audio description utilizing the skills of beatboxers and poets and sound effects basically. So yeah, that was my journey.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so cool. I have to say, when I was doing research and getting to know you a little bit better, I was like so fascinated by that because I do agree that sometimes audio description it can be very monotone and like you said about if you've got a really emotional scene, it could sometimes kind of break break that a little bit if you've got like this really sort of monotone description happening. And I was so fascinated by the way that you incorporate hip hop into that. I just think it's so cool.
Oh, thank you, thank you so much. And it was like, obviously, like I say, that was the reason I leaned into hip hop was because obviously that was kind of like my background and what I know and what I would recommend to anybody who's wanting to, you know, do work within accessibility is, you know, delve into what they know in terms of, if there's other elements that they think, could potentially help with being more engaging, with the work. Because obviously, I explored a lot of stuff within hip hop culture, but there's so many other elements that could potentially enhance accessibility in ways that I've not even explored or discovered yet. So if people have a passion about accessibility, but also have other passions, maybe see if they could merge the two because they, again, like me, they may stumble across some incredible links that can really help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's usually always a way of sort of merging things together and if you can make them more accessible in the process, cool. We love that. Always good.
Yep.
So, as a fight choreographer, you've undertaken sessions with disabled performers. Would you like to see more disabled representation in action movies?
1000% yes. Yeah, most definitely. Um, and I think, yeah, I think the reason for that is because yeah, I just got fed up with because obviously I know what people with disabilities are capable of because I've worked within that realm for so many years now. So, for me, I know people with disabilities can do absolutely incredible stuff. I mean, when I was the artistic director of the Special Olympics, I saw so many, incredible feats. Obviously, teaching people with vision impairments to spin on their heads and get upside down. So nobody can't tell me that they can't do action. And so I was just getting really frustrated with seeing in certain films where they would have a non-disabled person playing a disabled role. It really kind of like just upset me. And so I was like, and I was like, it's just down to ignorance. It's down to people just kind of like having low expectations of what people with disabilities are truly capable of. So I was like, okay, I need to address this then. And so I was like, okay, so I need to start to create some content to make lived examples of people with disabilities actually doing great fight choreography. So they can then put that in front of casting directors and be like, see, we can do not only do choreography, but we can do it really well. And so that was it. So wherever I can, I'm always happy to cast disabled actors and performers in the work that I do. And I've been speaking to a producer about producing a short film that has disabled people as the stars of of action films and stuff like that. So that's kind of like what I'm really passionate about, what I'm leaning towards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you. And yeah, it is very, very rare that you see disabled characters being portrayed by disabled performers. And I am right with you there. It is quite upsetting, to be honest, because like you said, disabled performers are just as capable, as able-bodied performers and can portray things more authentically, if they have a disability than an able-bodied person would be able to. So I'm right with you there. Yeah, disabled representation is key, I think.
Yeah, a thousand percent.
So what would you say are some of the benefits of including performers with disabilities in theatre productions and on screen?
Oh, there's loads. I mean, I think the biggest thing is authenticity. Um, like you mentioned before, like a disabled performer can, obviously, portray their disability better than any non-disabled person could do. But also, like, you can have different movement aesthetics can be explored and things like that. That, for example, non-disabled people, wouldn't be able to achieve. I mean, like for example, even like I was talking to this one person who's a wheelchair user and they're a filmmaker, and they were saying that in terms of if you're on a part of a film crew and the film crew doesn't have like a dolly, which is kind of like a track with a camera on it, so it kind of allows for like smooth shots to occur while it's moving. Obviously, if you've got somebody who's non-disabled and they're walking, the shot's still going to be very bumpy. Whereas with the wheelchair user, because they have a wheelchair, just give them a camera and boom, you've got like the smoothest shot ever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so there's loads of ways in which you know disabled people can enhance the production, like on screen, off screen, backstage, on center stage. There's so many ways, and in terms of kind of like movement dynamics and things like that. So if you were to have, say, like a blind person in a fight scene, obviously they a lot of casting directors and non-disabled people think, well, they won't be able to tell when a punch or a kick is coming to them, so they won't be able to block them in time and all that kind of rubbish they'll say. Whereas I'm like, you lot are wrong. Because as well, what you can do is, one, you can again have a sound score for sound effects and timing. So once you choreograph the movements, they would know the timing, when to move their bodies to certain positions. But also contact sensitivity. So for example, if a punch is thrown and they put their arm out to block it, as soon as the other punch comes in, what naturally happens when you throw a punch with one hand, the other hand pulls back. So as soon as they feel that movement happen, they'll know to then put their other hand up into that position to block that movement and things. But also, you could have a completely new aesthetic come where it's literally just about contact sensitivity. So, for example, my style of kung fu that I practice, called Wing Chun, there's a drill called sticking hands, or Chi Sao, and within that, it is about each person. They touch like forearms in different positions, and they go through a rolling position, and so they fight just by the pressure. So it's about training contact sensitivity. So they can do a lot of. It's very common for that drill to be done with people being blindfolded. So that drill is something that could be applied to film very, very easy, and you could create a brand new aesthetic of movement and fight choreography within that, rather than just being the same types of movements that are seen time and time again in fight choreography, because everybody's coming from it from a 2020 visual perspective rather than coming from it from a different place.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that sounds incredible. And obviously, like you mentioned, I guess it's just about adapting things, isn't it? It's about finding ways for everyone to be included in things. And if that takes a little bit of adaptation, okay, cool. But as long as you're open-minded about it and willing to adapt and consider different approaches, there's very few things that are impossible.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think, the more people are willing to keep their minds open, the the more greatness we will achieve. I think what happens if people just stick to playing it safe, like security can kill you. What I
Yeah.
mean. Being secure and not taking risks, that can be a lot of people's downfall. But I think if people are just open-minded, and me and my friend of mine, we have a saying which is let's just tolerate uncertainty. You know, and by leaning into uncertain things, incredible things can happen. I mean, I'm living proof of that in terms of I wasn't certain about where my journey around accessibility was going to take me. All I knew is I was afraid of something and I needed to learn more about it. So I was taking a step into the unknown, but within doing that, it ended up becoming my life's work. And I think the more people that are open to uncertainty, I think it'll be just better for everybody because it just means that more people can have the opportunity to be included in things.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So, what would you say has been your proudest moment in your career so far?
Wow, that's a huge question right
I
there.
know, I'm sorry.
Proudest moment in my career. Wow. Um, do you know what? I think the first kind of like moments where I had my VI students coming to me and saying that they were using the injury prevention movement, the breakdance movements, as a life skill in like their everyday lives and things like that. I think that was my proudest moment. It's hard to top the feeling of being able to contribute positively to somebody's life on that meaningful level. So it becomes like an everyday thing for them. So I think it was the reason I was so proud was because they felt they had the tools to kind of like interact with the world with more confidently. And so for me, that is probably the most proudest point. And I got that feeling so many times throughout my career, with so many people that have kind of like done the injury prevention course and things. But yeah, from that to having my visually impaired students dance alongside my sighted students, and having my visually impaired students teach the general public in our public performances, breakdance movements, like seeing that was just beautiful. Yeah, obviously, there's the big prestigious stuff as well, which obviously I'm proud of, like, artistic director of the Special Olympics, winning was a community contributor of the year award from the RNIB, and then all the film awards that one. Like they're really proud moments. But for me, when you put all those accolades to one side, it's more about how much you can make a genuine positive impact on somebody's life. And they go off and then they fly with that. That's what makes me proudest.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine. And I mean, in terms of like injury prevention as well, I think like coming from my perspective, so I've been blind since birth. I've never had any sight whatsoever. And so when you're sighted, I think you learn a lot of the time by mimicking. So you mimic what people are doing around you. And so I say this because I fell over a fair few times as a kid. I think it comes with being blind, walk into things, fall over all the time. But I didn't even know like to extend my hands or put my hands down when I fall, so I didn't, so like my hands would sort of save me and I wouldn't injure myself. And people would say to me kind of, well, you should have put your hands up. I'm like, well, it's too late now. I'm kind of injured now. But I didn't know that I could do that and it would have prevented me from injuring myself or at least getting less hurt. And so I think coming at it from that perspective, I can imagine that for your visually impaired students, that would have been so amazing to know that there are things that they can do to prevent themselves from, getting injured.
Yeah, I think so. I think they really kind of like, appreciated that, and that's why they practiced the move so much because they knew that okay, this could actually help, help me not get hurt as often and things. Um, and also it's a skill for them to look cool whilst they're doing it as well, so they could bust the moves out at parties or anything as well. So yeah, I think I think it really did kind of like make a big impact for them within that kind of context. And it's interesting, that you talk about the difference in experience between blind people and sighted people. And one thing that I will say, I feel that people with visual impairment, I feel like they operate from more inside of their bodies than sighted people do. So, and what I mean by that is like you have more substance within you in terms of where you walk. Whereas because a lot of sighted people, when they walk, they actually lean over forward slightly. And because they're always trying to get to where they want to be. And so what it means is they're leading with the front of their body. So they're not actually engaging with their entire body. They're leading from the front of their bodies. Whereas when you're visually impaired, you have to be in your body so you can make sure that you can navigate the space safely and things like that. And so where you move from, you move from the center of you more so than say like a sighted person does. And for example, it's in my experience, it's been a lot easier, for example, to teach a visually impaired person, like for example, say salsa dancing, as opposed to a sighted person, because your contact sensitivity is a lot more in tune. So there's a lot of things why I feel visually impaired people way outshine sighted people with how they just naturally are and how they naturally move.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about that before, but I guess, yeah, we kind of have to be more aware and more in touch with things. And I mean, I carry a cane when I walk as well, so not only am I super in touch with my body and what I'm doing, I've got my cane, and I mean, what you're meant to do is match your cane with your footsteps. So I think it's you move your left foot, you move your cane to the right. I'm not good at that. I'm not a good blind person. I don't do that. I kind of just scan it and hope for the best. But um yeah, I think we do have to be more aware of stuff, and I'm really aware of my surroundings as well because I have to be. So yeah, I guess so. I've never really thought of that before though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, for my experience and what I've experienced and observed, yeah, I feel that yeah, there's definitely like a heightened awareness, and I feel like sighted people could learn so much from visually impaired people, 1,000%. And also like in terms of the cane, so um, one thing that I teach some of my students is, so one of the skills I have and I learned while I was fire spinning was spinning a staff. So I spin it around my body. Like it's called like contact staff, where it kind of like this that that skill involves you keeping the staff in contact with various parts of your body at any one given time. So, for example, you could be spinning the staff around your hand, around your arm, around your neck, around your shoulders, around your knee, and things. And I teach my VI students to do that with their canes. And they're great. So they're already like superheroes in terms of they got all these incredible staff spinning skills. So yeah. So if we ever meet, I'll teach you to do some cool stuff with your cane as well.
Oh my God, yes, please do. That is iconic. I would love that so much. Now, we've talked about just some of the incredible things you've accomplished so far, but do you have any aspirations for the future?
Okay. So for the future, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to make some big budget kind of like feature films. Um, like I say, that have disabled people starring in major action roles, but also working behind the cameras as well. Um, so I'd love for that to happen. I'd love to see just in general more disabled people in more leading roles of not just action films, but just films in general. Um, so obviously I'll do my best to play my part wherever I can within that kind of context. So that's kind of like where my aspirations kind of like lie at this moment in time. Apart from that, I just want to make incredible work. That's what it comes down to. I'm just open to whatever the universe has to throw at me, and I just want to do the best at whatever I put my mind to, and just want to make incredible work.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Well, good luck with it all. I'm sure it's going to go amazing. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You are absolutely incredible. Genuinely, there aren't enough compliments in the world to sum you up properly. But the work you do is absolutely amazing, and I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk to me. So thank you so much.
Oh no, thank you. Like I really appreciate you, taking time out to to talk to me. Like it means so much to me and things like that. Like absolutely love that conversation and finding out more about you as a person and the things that you've been up to. So yeah. Thank you.
Oh, vice versa. Thank you so much. And thank you to my audience for listening, and I will see you all next time.